Well, another blast from President Donald Trump and another threat to rock the Canadian economy with auto tariffs. Has the Trudeau trade strategy failed, or is this just another bump in the Trump road? To talk about what he would do differently and some other very key issues, we're joined now by the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, Andrew Scheer. Great to have you back in the program.
Always a pleasure, thanks.
Man, Donald Trump throwing more economic bombshell threats at Canada. Is that a sign that, you know, the Trudeau team, which has advisors like, you know, Brian Mulroney and Rona Ambrose, who's on our show today as well, on it, that it's have been a failed strategy, that they can't get it by tomorrow's deadline?
Well, we'll see what tomorrow brings and whether or not the president actually follows through with what he's been threatening. It's certainly not a good sign. It's not an indication that that we're in the best possible place that we could be. And when you look at what has been threatened before, steel tariffs and then steel tariffs being implemented, I think Canadians are rightly concerned with that.
What would you do differently?
You know, you look at the situation we find ourselves in, and we've got Justin Trudeau back when the specter of NAFTA negotiations were first raised. He said, count me in, you know, and he volunteered to be a part of this. And while the Americans were talking about auto, steel, and aluminum and manufacturing jobs, the Prime Minister sat down with a list of social issues that really didn't speak to market access. And we've been hearing from a lot of circles that has been a problem with that.
But to be fair, Mr. Scheer, if you hear Donald Trump, he's never complaining about social issues or progressive issues, whatever they're bringing to the table. Maybe that's a negotiating tactic on the Trudeau front. I don't know. What he says is autos and dairy. So either on the autos, he says, I'm going to punish you on autos. And the big issue is he wants supply management gone. Justin Trudeau says no. You say no. The NDP says no. Why not?
I get frustrated when people look at what's coming out of the U.S. and they forget to tell the story about the types of supports that the U.S. government has for its dairy sector. And Donald Trump can criticize our mechanisms, but he is standing in a state that in Wisconsin, that receives billions of dollars of subsidies and floor prices and mechanisms.
I get it.
And I don't believe that we should be offering them, and certainly, you know, to offer up to the U.S. government a system that has worked very well in Canada as a starting point.
But that's the sticking point. This is clearly in Trump's head. You know it. He's like a dog with a dairy bone on this one. Why not give up on that?
So the goal of a successful negotiation is to not necessarily, is not just quickly give the person on the other side of the table what he wants. It's to find a way to improve your own leverage so that he needs to give you what you want. And we do that by strengthening our economy, by making Canada the type of place that people want to pour their dollars into.
What's different than what Trudeau's done? I'm just trying to say, like...
What's different?
Yeah,
Justin Trudeau is raising taxes here, making Canada less competitive. The ratio of American investment in Canada has plummeted. The ratio of Canadian investment in the U.S. has skyrocketed.
No,
so that weakens our position at the table. It makes us less able to hold the lines on things because we have fewer voices in the U.S. fighting to get into Canada.
Let me move on to an issue that's you've talked a lot about. 2009, Tori Stafford, an 8-year-old, abducted, raped, and murdered. And then one of the killers, Terri-Lynn admits it. Then she's put in a maximum, then a max medium. And we've just found out she's been transferred to something called an Indigenous Healing Center. Now, the Liberal government says they're going to, quote, review this. Ralph Goodale called these bad practices of McClintock. How do you think they should get this killer back into prison?
Reviewing the policy, I'm sorry, that's a joke. They have an opportunity to do the right thing, to reverse this decision and get her back behind bars.
Okay, can they do it? Does he have the power to do it? The lawyers say, well, maybe they don't have to. Does the Justice Minister or the Public Safety Minister or the Prime Minister have the power to get this done quickly?
Absolutely. And
so what would you do if you were there?
So it's been done in the past. We have a motion on Tuesday, this week. We have a motion where every member of Parliament will be able to express their position on this. And I'm urging Canadians to call their MP, ask them to vote for our motion. Our motion calls on the government to first condemn the decision. We don't even know, Justin Trudeau and Ralph Goodale won't even say if they disagree with the decision. And the second thing is to implement a policy that would reverse this. That can be done by setting certain criteria as to who's eligible to go to this type of facility. And it could very well be as simple as the minister issuing a directive saying anyone who's committed these types of horrific crimes against a young child Can't go to one. It could be a variety of tools, but they absolutely do have the power. They just refuse to use it.
Last thing before you go, you know, on October 5th, Jason Kenney, the leader of the United Conservative Party in Alberta, and Doug Ford will hold a rally in Calgary saying, "Stop the carbon tax rally." Okay, you obviously don't like any price on carbon. Would you go to something like that?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm so excited to have Doug Ford joining the fight against the carbon tax, and very soon Jason Kenney will join him. And when you look at the coalition that the Liberals have built around the carbon tax, it's in tatters. Rachel Notley's pulling out. We don't know yet how exactly things will shake out in New Brunswick, but the PC party there that has the most seats has said they oppose it. So even the Liberals have said that the carbon tax is so bad, they're giving big emitters and big companies a 90% exemption. So absolutely we're going to fight the carbon tax.
There was a study out headed by a guy named Mark Cameron. You know him. He was the senior policy advisor to Stephen Harper from 2006 to 2009. And he did this study for Clean Prosperity. And in it he said, when you look costs with a price on carbon, in a place like Ontario, for example, would cost the average four-person family $300 for more gas, more heating. But he said under the Liberals' plan, the legal plan, they'll get $500 back. He believes that people will actually get more money back because the Liberals are also taxing, as you say, big emitters. So in fact, people will get checks mailed to them from the carbon tax and emissions go down. He's a conservative policy advisor. What do you say to that?
So whatever role he may have had in the past, he certainly does not have that role now. He has been pushing his carbon tax idea for a while. This is not an unbiased report. This is definitely highly speculative. You mentioned that he analyzes the Liberal plan. I do have to say, this report does nothing like that. It is very speculative in nature. It talks if the government did this and if the government did that.
If they did what they say they're going to do.
If they say what they recommend in their report. And it does not factor into account the job losses, the lost economic activity, the impact of companies saying we can't do business in a country where we have to pay carbon taxes. It also doesn't take into account the 90% exemption that have been given to big emitters, and that means that the burden will fall on individuals and families to make up the slack.
Last thing on this, you were on this program last year and you told me, Evan, I'm going to have a plan and I'm going to be able to cut Canada's emissions and meet our targets, the Liberal and the Stephen Harper targets, and I will be able to do it without putting a price on carbon. Do you still have that promise, and will you still release that plan?
I will absolutely release that plan. I know a lot of people have been saying, we'd love to see it. We'd like to have the opportunity.
Well, the Liberals keep baiting you. Where's the plan?
But their plan won't hit their targets. Their plan will release costs, and they love to shift the attention on other things. I will have a plan. Our team is working on it right now. It's going to be a comprehensive plan. It's going to have meaningful action, and that's the thing that is so frustrating about the Liberal plan. It's all about the carbon tax. It's all about the carbon tax. Our plan will speak to incentivizing businesses to make reductions, also take into account the impact when jobs and emissions leave the country, because global emissions don't go down when a company leaves Canada and produces things in other countries. So it will capture the principle that we can do things better here in Canada with higher environmental standards that actually has a better impact on global emissions.
Andrew Scheer, great to have you on the program, sir.
Always a pleasure.